Thank you very much for those who are watching online. We're going to start soon. As people are lining up to get into their chairs, getting themselves comfortable, all those things. So thank you very much for tuning in, guys. If you guys are watching online, thank you very much for tuning in. If you can send some super chats, that will be very appreciated of you. Those things cost money, gas, and resources, amongst other things. So feel free to chip in some buckets there. That will be fantastic. I just want to see where you guys are watching from. That would be good. I just got to know that Mr. Albertan will be MC today. I could be the MC today, but apparently I'm not, so that would be good. You ready? Okay, guys. We're about to start soon. Also known as Kick-Ass and Chew Bubble Gum.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Hey, Balzac. I'm Al. And Mrs. Al is around here somewhere. You might find us on Facebook. That's where you usually see me. We've got a good lineup tonight. You guys got all the All-Stars. We got Zane Novak here. They'll be speaking to you first. Right after that, we'll have Cory Morgan, which many of you probably know from YouTube as well. And then we've got Mr. Chris Scott anchoring it all down. So we will... We'll get things moving. This is the first time I've been in this hall since I got married 30-some years ago. So it's kind of touching to be back here and seeing all you guys sitting on the floor that I first danced with my wife on. That's pretty amazing. I love it. So we'll, without further ado, this is the Let's Talk Alberta event. It's really just an information session. It's not one side or the other. It's just about information on where we are, where we'll be going, and what will happen if we do end up in our own country. So I did see that the washrooms are just back there. There's an exit there that's an emergency exit. Obviously, the door that you came in is another exit. And other than that, you're going to the basement. I don't think you want to go there if there's something happening. So there's another one over there. There you go. That way. So, oh yeah, I see it. So I guess other than that, I will now introduce Mr. Zane Novak, and he will take it from here.
Get my little timer going here because I tend to talk long, think short, talk long. So yes, I'm Zane Novak. I used to live in Calgary. I'm out. And I thought Calgary was a little bit of a media hotbed when I was there with stuff I was doing. Well, I'm out in Sundre that's turned into a hotbed right now. Did a CTV interview just a couple hours before coming in here. And it was my vehicle, so we had to do the Zoom thing. And yeah, I mean, we'll see how it turns out. It's difficult to trust mainstream media. We'll see how it goes. But the reason that I'm here, and I think the reason that you folks are in those seats, is we're concerned about our province, concerned about our country, and certainly concerned about our future. And I mean, I could be up here for hours talking about the negatives of where we are and how Canada has changed, particularly in the last, 10, 15 years. But it's been on a slow decline this way since 1905. And, you know, I've had a lot of people come up to me and they go, oh, well, you know, this is so dramatic what you're talking about doing. You know, we just need to work harder. We can fix it. We cannot fix this from the inside. Our system, though it may feel broken to us, is not broken. It is working exactly the way it was created, the way it was designed. Back, you know, 200 years ago, really, by the Laurentian elite, it's always been set up that we were colonies to service England, and now really it's just switched to the West being colonies to service the East. And it was designed that way, and we cannot fix it from inside. Why do I say that? Well, you can look at how our Supreme Court is set up, for instance. You know, there are 7 Supreme Court judges east of Manitoba, 2 west. So even if it gets to the Supreme Court, what chance do we have? Not only that, Supreme Court, pretty much all of them are appointees by a Liberal government. The same thing works with our federal ridings. The last federal election we had, our ballot boxes, our polls closed at 8 o'clock. The winner was announced at 8:09. It doesn't matter who votes from Winnipeg West. Our votes carry no weight. You look at the Senate. Alberta has about 5 million people now. The Maritimes have about 2.4 million, so we're double the population. We have 6 Senate seats. They have 34. And they're pretty much all appointed by Trudeau and now Carney. So we really have no chance to get our own say. And to open the Constitution, you know, we would need 7 other provinces to agree with that process if we want to address specific things of fairness. But you need over 50% of the population, which means you have to have either Ontario or Quebec side with you. The odds of that are 0. So, you know, we can go to all those things, but what are the outcomes we're living with right now? Well, we can see that our GDP is lower than that of Alabama. Our GDP nationally, the growth of it in the last 10 years has been 0.6%. The U.S. has been 20.3%, but the media would have you believe that the U.S. is a ship on the rocks and about to sink. Bringing us back to the topic of media. We look at the bills that are coming out right now, like C8 and C9, and how it restricts our ability to share information. If we do, we can literally be imprisoned. And now they're talking about all these ones where our youth can't be on social media. And you know, part of me initially goes, that's maybe not a bad idea, because social media is very toxic. But do you realize that when that is passed, for anyone to have a social media account, Facebook, any of that, that you now will have to present like photo government issued ID. So if you ever post anything that no longer conforms to our federal government, you can go to jail based on Bill C8 and C9. So, I mean, you know, on one hand, they hold this little carrot out and they go, oh, you know, we're going to protect your youth. Well, really, they're just taking an overwatch on all of us. And, you know, the sad thing is we have the highest inflation. We have the highest housing costs of the G7. We have the highest food costs. Less than 17% of Canadians in a recent survey said they felt safe. And 1 in 4 families this year have had to use a food bank. I sometimes drive, I still have my class 1, sometimes drive truck for a friend of mine, and we haul in the city, and I used to go down 14th Street out in the southeast, and that is where the food bank is. And they would have guys, individuals out there with the fluorescent vests and those 2 batons like you see at airports where they're directing the plane to come in and hook up to the passenger way. They had them up and down the street because cars are lined up and down 14th Street, northbound and southbound, to get in there for food. This is Calgary. This is the most prosperous city in Canada, and that's how we're affected. We can look at some of the other outcomes. You know, we have no ownership of our land anymore. Carney came out with a thing called 2030, and it's his federal goal that the federal government will control 30% of the land in Canada by 2030. And he does it under the guise of, we're going to protect the environment, we're going to protect our resources for future. It's just a massive overreach. Whose land is he taking? Look what's happening in British Columbia with the UNDRIP and what's happening with Indigenous folks taking over those areas where people have generationally owned land. And now they can't get a loan. They don't know if they own title. There was a trailer court there. They were given 30 days to evict. People have been there for 20, 30 years. This is the future that we're in. So this is all grim, right? This is all stark and harsh. But I want to end on a bit better note. Imagine when we win the referendum question about a referendum could possibly lead to a referendum, because our famous Premier just kicked that can down the road 3 times. But when we win this, what could Alberta look like? What would it look like? Well, we would finally have control over our educational system. Joe in Calgary here a few years back, the teachers, that's healthcare, I lied. Healthcare, jumping topics now because I should have had notes. We could also revise our healthcare system. I mean, we just, for the second time, had a person die in a waiting room in Edmonton, in the waiting room. When I was involved in the nonprofit community in Calgary, AHS leased a building for their bureaucracy, their staff that aren't doctors or nurses, and they signed a 5-year lease that paid over $120 million, not allowing for the extra costs of move-in setup fees and then to put the property back to its original context at the end of 5. It was over $120 million. The city appraised value of that building was $118 million. Who here would not rent your house out if you could get full return on your investment in 58 months? Those are the types of bureaucratic deals, and in the meantime, we have people dying in waiting rooms. And we see the same problems with our school, our educational system. We put our children in, and they come out often educated and indoctrinated in a way we no longer recognize them, and they're not capable to fill out a resume, pick a career, balance a checkbook, fill out their taxes, cook a meal, or do any of these things. So we can reset all these things, and we would have the funding to do it, given the overpayment that we give to Ottawa. You know, some of the numbers, I'm sure you're familiar with all of them. You know, our transfer payments are always in that 23+ billion a year. Our federal income tax, we usually pay about 70 billion a year, and only about 40 billion of it comes back to us by way of programs for education, infrastructure, education. Interesting to note on that, when Carney got in, he announced 10 mega projects in Canada, not one in Alberta, even though we're funding most of the others. And then we have an overpayment in CPP. You know, we pay in 9 to 10 billion a year. We've never taken out more than 6 because we have a younger population. We have an overpayment in EI of $500 million a year. You add all these things up, and those are numbers that can stay here, along with the fact that, you know, we pay tariffs between provinces right now. We would actually have a better ability to deal with the neighboring provinces, if we're a country, than what we have right now being part of this. And everybody says, oh, we're landlocked, we're landlocked. Well, we're landlocked now. At least under international law, we have the right to tidewater. There are so many opportunities that we have. We have the ability to look at almost 200 other constitutions now, plus countless ones from before, and figure out an amazing template as to what we want our Constitution to be. And we will do it with input from us. We as citizens of this new republic, or whatever we choose to call our nation state, we will write those documents. We have the ability to bring merit into our government, not just bureaucracy, not just popularism. Right now, to get in, it's basically a popularity contest. Get your friends and your family out to vote you in. Doesn't mean you're competent at all. And we can see that every day in the way our government runs. But I'm going to leave on this note. The most important point of this evening is a question and answer we do at the end. Think about your questions. If you want to ask questions about our Indigenous members of this province, you want to talk about the military, you want to talk about the national parks, you want to talk about any of these subjects, please, 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 at the end of this, get that microphone, we'll have it for you, ask those questions, because that is where the most education happens, is in the Q&A. And thank you for listening to me. And I am calling on someone that we've all been wanting to hear from, because this guy is actually intelligent and knowledgeable. Cory Morgan. I just love listening to Cory because I learn every single time. I learn new stuff. Come on up, Cory.
Gee, thanks for setting the bar low, Zane. I guess I better begin with an acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that the administration of the town of Taber raised my TPA an extra $10,000 through their myopic idiocy. And I hope those peckerheads keep it up and help me raise 20. I like to thank people when they help me out. It'd be ungrateful not to. But you know, it's symptomatic. It's showing what's going on with this discussion. It's showing what's happening all over the place. You know, once in a while, I think a lot of us get those periods of introspection. You know, we think to ourselves, am I on the right side? Am I doing the right thing? Am I moving in the right direction? One of the easiest ways to ask yourself, though, wondering if you're on the right side, are you on the side that supports freedom and debate? Yes. Then we're on the right side. I don't know how the Federalists can really look at themselves as they try to cancel discourse, as they try to tear down signs, as they shut down parades, think that they're on the right side. If they're afraid of the discussion, it means they have no point. I mean, I can't say that for all of them. There are some good points to be made by Federalists, and I would rather they tried to do the discourse in the public forum through discussions rather than trying to cancel us. But they seem to be on the canceling front. The insecurity of it. You know, there's Canadian flags here. I got to admit, there's a lot more blue than red, but these flags don't bother me. The flags represent the country that actually gave me a very good upbringing, a country that provided me a lot of freedoms, a country that had a lot of prosperity, peace. There were a lot of good things about Canada. There was a lot of great history in Canada. There were a lot of Canadians who worked their butts off, sacrificed in wars or just breaking the land so we can enjoy what we have today. I'm not so insecure that I'd be afraid of that flag, even if I want to evolve into independence today. So again, what does it say about the other side? And we need to have these talks. They're afraid. The establishment is afraid. The parasites are afraid. We're becoming afraid because we're seeing this future that Canada was built upon fading away. We're seeing those freedoms, the big wake up during COVID to realize our freedoms weren't nearly as entrenched as we'd thought they'd been. As we're watching our gross domestic product per capita flatline, whilst our closest neighbor, the United States, has almost double theirs, while ours stayed the same in the last 15 years. Where's the prosperity? We're seeing the construct failing. So we want to change it. We want to move forward. We want to move up. So who would want to keep it? The establishment, the ones who are doing well, the poli-sci professors who make 6 figures and take multi-year sabbaticals so they can write more extended piles of crap, teach liberal arts degrees to kids who end up making lattes for the rest of their lives. They want to keep this going. Politicians want to keep this going. Some of the business interests that rely on nothing but subsidies want to keep this going. They're the ones lining up to try and shut down our discourse right now. They're not trying to reason with us. And that's what makes me confident that we're on the right path. And they're going to throw all the roadblocks in front of us that they possibly can. And we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, you know, the Clarity Act is there, the path was there, but they keep curving the path and they keep adding another hurdle. But you know what? We can't let that get us down. And it has happened with some people, but I see they're all kind of getting up again. The court ruling brought a lot of people down. It slowed a lot of people down. They worked their butts off all winter petitioning, thinking they were playing by the rules, thinking they were working on a democratic exercise, to have a Trudeau-appointed judge say, you know what, you didn't consult every single Indian in the province, so we're just going to shut that down. That frustrated people. But should we be surprised? You know, but we can't let it stop us. When a hurdle is there, we go over it, or we'll go around it, or we'll push the damn thing over and step on it. But we don't stop. We've got a mealy-mouthed question coming this fall, this non-committal word salad. but it has turned into a de facto independence debate and question. The country, in fact, the world is watching this to a degree, and they're seeing this as an independence vote. And I know it's not binding, but it sets a heck of an example. And we're at a disadvantage because the Federalist side doesn't really even have to win this question. They'll still be there. But we have to. If we sit back on our heels, if we say it was too unfair, it's not the right question, I'm too pissed at the government to worry about campaigning on this referendum and things like that, and we come in at 20% this fall on October 19th, we set ourselves back a decade in this movement. I mean, the movement's never going away. I think some people are finally realizing that. But it is going to have its ups and downs. We want to make sure the momentum is always moving forward. So yes, it's a stupid question. Yes, it's an unclear question. But having a strong showing in support for option 2 on that question is vital for us to keep this movement moving and alive and making a point. And that's why the establishment is afraid. Why would they be afraid of a non-binding question when they feel they're in a majority position? Because they know they can't win the war of words. They can't win if we have those conversations. If enough Albertans talk with each other, enough Albertans start nodding their heads and realizing, yeah, it's time for some change. So they want to shut down the debate. So in Sundre, we see what's going on, right? Tabor, trying to pull down billboards. My website, the amount of hacking attempts it's had against it in the last 2 weeks. And it's funny because some geeks are probably really scratching their head. Why is this ugly ancient WordPress site still sitting up there even though I've thrown everything but the kitchen sink at it? Well, it's actually hosted by the company that used to host the Conservative Party of Canada website. So keep at it, guys. But it's fine. But it shows, again, their mindset, right? They don't want to debate. They want to shut us down. The closest thing we had to a debate was with Jason Kenney. Speaking of the establishment, speaking of evolving the wrong way. I mean, there were 2 Jason Kenneys. I remember the Jason Kenney of the 90s, the Reform Party Jason Kenney, the Canadian Taxpayer Federation Jason Kenney, a smart, hardworking, conservative man who did a lot of good things. But then we sent him to Ottawa, and he became Ottawashed, as so many of them do. When you get into that cloistered world, it doesn't matter how good the person is. If they've been under that dome in that establishment for a couple of decades, they are not going to come back with the values you sent them out there with. So I talk about with people in politics saying, I want to go into federal politics. Why do we want to send more good Albertans over there? It's not doing any favors. And now Jason Kenney's lost what he was there for, and he's now invested in protecting the status quo. He's a smart man. He's a good communicator. I will speak more about Jason Kenney on this cause than I will with Thomas Lukaszuk, because Lukaszuk's a nut and he puts people off and he's creepy. So keep purring, Thomas. You're not helping the other side. But Kenney is one you got to watch for. Kenney is smart. The debate, if those who watched it with Keith Wilson and Jason Kenney, and you wanted to throw things at your screen because Kenney's not saying anything. He's fear-mongering, and he's playing on emotions. Yes, he is. Well, why is he doing it? Because it works. That's why he's doing it. So we've got to learn how to counter that side. Don't worry about Lukaszuk. He's just trying to earn money for his next cell phone bill or something. Yes, I don't know how he ran up 20,000 in Poland. How much Polish girls gone wild do you have to stream to run a bill like that? But Jason Kenney and that emotional case. So this is kind of, for some who've heard me talk, this is what a lot of my focus is, my focus in my book, my focus on things like that, in that we're dealing with a very personal issue to a lot of people. Not everybody who is still emotionally attached to the concept of Canada, sentimentally attached to it, they're not stupid people, they're not unreasonable people. They are a large segment of the people. They can be moved, but it has to be done delicately. It has to be done with multiple interactions. It has to be done with a strategy. And it has to be done by us interacting with them. Personal conversations with people we know and trust. That's how you change a person's mind on something that's a sentimental thing. I can coldly point out that Canada is just a contract. You know, it's just a constitution. It's just a creation of people. Well, that people don't feel that same way necessarily about it. And I sound callous. I mean, a marriage document's just a contract too, but divorces tend to have a lot of emotion attached to them. So you've got to talk it out, and it can take multiple conversations. And people will move. We need the facts and figures because people have a lot of questions, and we want to be able to answer them honestly. But we also need to address their concerns. The thing is, all roads do eventually lead to independence. We know that. So if we can get the discourse going, we have those conversations, they will lead themselves to the same place we are. We're just there to facilitate the discussion, not to tell them what to do. We got to do something that's counterintuitive to a lot of us, certainly to a blowhard like me. We've got to ask them rather than tell them. What is your concern? What are you upset about? What do you see in the future? And everybody does have a concern. If you're having that conversation, whether you're at the bar or the soccer game or wherever you might be, at the family dinner table, don't ruin supper over it if it's going to be a fight. Use those opportunities when you see them. Ask them. And they will have concerns about freedoms or prosperity or their kid coming home every week claiming another gender or whatever it might be. And then start discussing where's the solutions. And that's where eventually they're going to lead themselves down the same path that we already have. Wow, I can't fix this within this system. This isn't going to change playing within the existing rule book. And they will bring themselves to the conclusion of independence being an alternative to choose this October. But we have to do it. We need to do the door knocking. We need to do the flyer drops. And we certainly need to get the signs out there. But signs don't change people's voting intentions. But what they do is bring out the conversations and take away the fear, the stigma. They're trying to make us ashamed to show the Alberta flag. They're calling the Alberta flag controversial. How insulting. You know, this is not a contemporary Confederate flag, you clowns. And I won't let you sully it. Though Chris sort of does with that shirt he wears everywhere. But, or Kerry, I should say. I'm getting my names mixed up. All you K sound things that can't seem to me. But those flags, the signs, part of what motivated me to do that. And some who have watched my videos might have heard me talk about that. I had one guy who did contact me. He donated almost $1,000 to my third-party advertising. This is a very dedicated person to what we're doing. That's a good chunk of change for most of us. And I said, great, can I get a sign on your lawn? No, I don't think I can do that. Wow, you know, you can cut a check for that, but you can't put a sign on your lawn. That's got to change. I'm not going to get on his case and try and force him, but I'm getting a lot of that from supporters saying, well, I just can't. I've got a neighbor who's just going to lose it on me if I do it. Or I don't know what the person down the block will think. I know. It takes a first step. But that is what will make people feel more confident. The more blue shirts they see, the more vehicles with stickers, and most particularly the more signs on lawns, because that's a person making a statement. That is a person saying, I'm willing to be open and just stating that I'm having this discussion, I'm having this idea, and this is where I want to go. And if a first one on the block leads to 3 or 4 on the block, they will spread. We know from polls. I mean, we have work to do. This is a minority position. But we can move that needle. But the polls even show, even some of the worst of the polls, we're looking at least 3 in 10 people pretty solidly for independence. So people worried about putting a sign on their lawn, well, sure, 2 of your neighbors are going to be ticked off, but another one's going to be thrilled. That adds up. You're not alone. And that's what these signs are about. They're signaling to other people you're not alone. This isn't a stigma. This is something we can discuss in the open. And we have to discuss in the open. And then maybe you could have that discussion with your neighbor over the fence. They might not put a sign on their lawn, but now they're having a talk about it. Well, what's up with the sign? Let's be civil. Let's talk about it. Have a beer, have a barbecue, whatever. But we need to return this to the civil level, the one-on-one level. The defenders of the status quo are not being civil. They don't want us to have these conversations. So they're trying to shut it down. So it's up to us to keep that foot in the door and not let them slam it, not let us feel like we should be ashamed to show a flag, to put a sign on our lawn, to have a discussion, to have it on your truck, to have a float in a parade, to put up a billboard. But when they're afraid, it means we're on the right track. So we've got to take it on It's up to us. The people here tonight are the movers and the shakers. The reason you came out on a night like this was because you want to do something. Or at least you want to listen. You want to talk about these things. And these are the ones that spread a movement. And this has been a great turnout on a night like this. So the other part of these that I love that Chris has put together, not Kerry, he doesn't do anything. And there's such great interactive experiences. They really are. I learned something at every one of these. People come with questions, comments, ideas that hadn't occurred to me. And we all come away with it a little better educated, a little better able to talk to our neighbors, our family members, our coworkers, whoever we may, so that we can keep this organic movement going. We got 4 months. It's a lot of time and it's very little time at the same time. So it's going to pass quickly, but we still can get on it. So again, for some of those folks, it's been 2 weeks, where's my sign? I'm getting to it, guys. We got 4 months, come on. We're getting there. But this is the seeds. It's going great. We've got the momentum. We can't get dejected. I know the Premier's not cutting us a clear path. She was never going to. But let's just get out there, make this statement, win that referendum, and then carry on this movement as far as we have to, as we will. So thank you all very much. I'm going to hand this off to, looks like Marty is going to come up and chat for a little while. A surprise guest, Marty up north. People are familiar with that social media titan and warrior of the roadside petitioning stand. So I will leave the mic to you, Marty, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't come here to speak, but I do want to say a few words because, so first of all, I want to introduce my beautiful wife, Karen. So Karen, stand up, please, for a second. She doesn't want to, but so Karen and I estimated that we spent about 120 hours each on the side of the road. So we had a very popular pop-up at the corner of 1A and Bear Spa. So about 120 hours, 40 days, 4 or 5 hours a day collecting signatures. We had set ourselves a goal of 1,000 each, and we came just short, 700 signatures each. And to be honest, the ruling that occurred and the fact that those signatures are sitting in Edmonton and are not being validated was upsetting. It was upsetting to me. This is my first public speaking since April 29th. And it was upsetting, but after, I just want to emphasize what Cory just said and what Chris is doing and everybody else, right? It was upsetting, but I'm not discouraged, right? And even when I was on the side of the road, trust me, we had a lot of people who would come around and say, like, what are you doing? Do you think this will succeed? And I always said, do you honestly think I would have spent 120 hours on the side of this road if I didn't think I'd succeed? Or more importantly, if I didn't think this was important? This was existential. Like our livelihood in this province is threatened. So Karen and I decided to do something about it, as you folks are doing, as Cory, as Chris, as Kerry, as everybody else is doing, right? So that's just my message today. I just felt I wanted to say that. It was a temporary setback, but I'm not discouraged. And the fight goes on, and I completely agree with Cory and others on this one. We have to be united now. We have to be a bit smarter about what we've been doing, and we have to continue to treat this as an existential threat. We have to get a really good showing at this referendum. Otherwise, we could set ourselves back for a decade, and I don't have it in me to spend another 120 hours on the side of the road. I'd rather do this instead. So anyways, thanks for coming out. Thanks, guys, for organizing this, and thanks for hearing me.
I don't get an introduction anymore because people want to watch me try and run. I've been told it's quite amusing. Well, thank you all for coming out. It's fantastic to see so many people out on what day of the week is it? I don't even know. Is it a Tuesday? Really? Wow. That person that said they'll see me next Tuesday, they're not even here. Weird. Sorry, I can't help myself. It's great to see so many people out when there's so much other stuff to do. I mean, there's storm watching to do today, apparently tornado chasing. We had a tornado, Peace River, something like that in Alberta in the last little while. Summer is kind of in full swing. Jessica and I, on our way up from Milk River today, or actually on our way down to Milk River yesterday, we encountered one of the most beautiful Alberta sites that I've seen yet. It was called Chin Coulee Campground. Beautiful lake, reservoir, clear water, nice little campground. I'm hoping that Let's Talk Alberta could put something together so we can do something fun there one day. But as we drove past there, I started to get that feeling like, I don't really want to go and speak at these events. I just want to go buy a little boat, a little engine that doesn't run very good, and I want to go fishing. I want to go get a little camper, and we can go out for the weekend and just let the world go around us, and we can enjoy nature, talk to each other, and not think about any of these things. And that was really, it was emotional for me. I really am getting, I want to go do those things again. And that's what most people are doing right now. They're enjoying Alberta, because this is probably one of the most beautiful places to live. It really is. From the prairies to the mountains to the rivers and the lakes. I mean, we really have it all here. We're very blessed to be here. And I understand why when summer rolls around, people just bail on all of this, most of this type of thing, and they enjoy life. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to be enjoying life. We're supposed to be getting together and having fellowship with each other and being human beings and enjoying our surroundings. Thank God that I enjoy doing this stuff as well, because it's not quite so bad me missing the other stuff when I get to come and hang out with some awesome people like you. So it's not all bad. But I say that just to I want to set the stage for what we're about to see over the summer. During the summers, political campaigns, they kind of stop. Politics kind of screeches to a halt because our politicians, they want to go spend 4 months vacationing as well. And we don't see the turnouts that we used to. So what does that mean? Does that mean that, the momentum is gone? Sure, the momentum kind of drops back a little bit, but the same issues that were there before that motivated us to fill halls, those issues still exist. We're still in the same situation we were 6 months ago. The difference is now we have a lot more experience. We've learned a lot of things. We've seen how the government's going to respond. We've seen how we're going to respond, regardless of what side of the conversation you're on. And all of those things together, those give us more tools, more resources, more ability to do what we want to do. Why we're here tonight? Because we want a better future, right? So no matter what happens, no matter what things happen that are considered a setback or even a kick in the shins, like what we saw coming from government about the question that most people wanted to see on the referendum, these aren't setbacks. They never are. They're always opportunities to do better. Every single time. When we fail individually or we fail collectively as groups or we don't meet the bar we wanted to meet, it's a learning opportunity. It's a blessing. It's tuition we're paying in order to achieve the things we want to. And we got to start thinking that way instead of, what most people would do is kind of recoil into a little bit of a depression or anger or whatever, and we let that remove our own motivation to do what we know we need to do what we know is right, to be the change we want to see. And we got to stop that, because there's going to be more setbacks. There's going to be more failures. There's going to be more kicks in the shin. Perhaps the kick will be a little bit higher, men, and we're going to feel it. It's going to sting. But if we start thinking about all of these things as opportunities, as learning experiences on how we can do something different and keep moving ahead towards the goal that we want to see happen, everything's a blessing. Now, you might notice that there's some Canadian flags behind me. There's some on the table. I would encourage you, if you want, you can buy a beautiful Canada hat with a maple leaf that doesn't represent Western Canada and nobody voted for in Western Canada. But hey, it's kind of what we grew up with. I point that out because I want people to understand my goal here is to have people come to these meetings, to these town halls, who disagree with what the majority in this room would advocate for right now. I would be so happy if some very pleasant Forever Canadian people set up a table and they had some Forever Canadian signs and shirts or whatever, and they would engage with us to explain to us why they take the position they do. I legitimately want to hear from people that disagree with me. And I'm not saying it's always going to go well. I'm not going to say that we're going to change each other's minds, but I do want to have the conversations. And that's what Let's Talk Alberta is about. How great would it be if we could do that thing again where we all got together and we talked about the things that were important to us in order to get the best conclusion or take the best path? Wouldn't that be fantastic? A lot of the Forever Canadian folks, they have legitimate concerns. They have legitimate grievances, as do the Alberta independence-minded people. And I think a lot of times, those grievances or those concerns or where they want to go, it's actually the same thing. We just have a different idea of how to get there. And it is true that, I've heard that sometimes I'm wrong about things. I've never experienced it yet. Sorry. I'm not so bold as to believe that everything that I think is exactly how things should be is the right path. Of course, I'm very passionate about my opinions. I share them freely. I advocate very strongly for an independent Alberta. I say that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with me. I want to know why they disagree. The one question that I've been asking, and I haven't really got a great answer, is if we were already an independent nation and we were asked to join Confederation under the current terms, would you do it? And most people say no, at least if people understand the terms, right? The other question I like to ask is, can you please give me 2 reasons, even 1 reason, why Alberta should specifically advocate for the status quo? Why should we continue along the path we're on? Give me 1 solid reason. And I don't get any. I've got lots of emotional arguments for sure. And the emotional arguments, those are difficult ones, because when we have an emotional response to something, we kind of form a preconceived bias, and that emotional wall stands between us and reality, right? Men, I'm sure most of you in this room have experienced that, probably some of the women too. And I say men because I'm a man and I can speak to it, whereas I am not a woman, and I can't even define what a woman is, apparently. But the point is, the more conversations we have and the more opportunity we have to have a human interaction with each other, the better the outcome for our future will be. And it is unfortunate that sometimes we see even the notion of a conversation go off the rails. What we saw in Sundry that's a little upsetting. It's sad to see how that played out. I don't like that people feel that they have to be political gatekeepers. And I'm not going to delve into what I believe happened, but what I'm seeing is there's a lot of people who are really stuck in that idea about it's impolite to talk about religion and politics, right? And I say this, I've said it 100 times, I'll say it again. Politics affects your life from before you're born until after you're dead. And then after you're dead, it puts the little greasy political fingers in your loved ones' lives and interrupts their mourning process. And then religion, that affects your eternity. Everything else until the end of time, which may not end. And I think knowing that, those 2 things are really important to talk about. Like, why would we not want to talk about those things with each other? Why is it considered impolite? I do have a theory, and my theory is, as people, average people, I believe that we've been manipulated by the machine to keep us as subjects and keep us in check so that we don't change anything. I believe that we have been made to feel that talking about these things is wrong or impolite, because when people talk about things, they change the world. How many stories do we know about things that have happened over history where people have met in coffee shops or in barns or around kitchen tables and come up with ideas that completely change the world? That's what Let's Talk Alberta is about. Facilitating the conversations that we were always meant to have. It is not the politicians that get up on a stage like this and make a bunch of promises and tell you they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Oh, I'm going to lower your grocery bills. I'm going to lower your utility bills. It's not those people that are going to change the world. It's us getting in rooms just like this, having conversations. And then afterwards, when you leave this room, I want you to be encouraged to take conversations wherever you go. You know, be the guy that starts the conversation at the coffee shop with a bunch of old farmers. Be the woman that strikes up a conversation, you know, in the lunchroom at work about these things. Talk to your neighbors and your friends and find out about the things that concern them. And learn. Learn as much as you can. The reason I say that is because if we hear somebody with an opposing viewpoint telling us something, whatever, this is their opinion, they're telling us, and we need to be able to speak to them about it, right? I've found that most, if not all, of the arguments that I've heard, the challenges that have been presented to me about Alberta independence, can almost easily be turned around as a rationale why Alberta must be independent. This goes right from the landlocked argument to the currency to military, what have you. And if we take the time to learn about these things, we become very effective communicators. We become very effective ambassadors for what we believe in. And that's what we're doing. We're standing up for what we believe in. We're having the conversations. We're listening to the other side. And then eventually, we're going to actually be asked a legit question, a watered down, what did you call it, mealy-mouthed question at that, but it still kind of reflects the will of the people. And I've said this at the last few Let's Talk Alberta events. I'll say it at this one too in case you missed it. That question that you're going to be asked and the potential subsequent question on Alberta sovereignty that will have constitutional teeth is probably one of the biggest blessings that you'll ever receive in your lifetime, at least in the political sphere. The ability of people to answer a question of self-determination in their nation, province, region, whatever, is a huge deal. This is something that thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people across the world have sacrificed their lives for. People just like you have watched their sons or daughters go to war to get the opportunity to answer a question on their self-determination. And we're going to be handed it on a silver platter. How amazing is that? That's why we put some Canadian flag things up. Because I don't like the structure that Alberta finds itself in within Confederation, but I sure as hell appreciate that we live in a place where we can pursue this freely and openly. I mean, thank goodness we don't live in a place where the government can lock us in our homes and tell us we can't go to a coffee shop and talk about things political, right? Wink, wink, wink. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got for tonight, but I just want to encourage you in the opportunity that we have in front of us. And I want to make sure that you also know that with that opportunity comes a great responsibility, a moral obligation, if you will, that we do everything we can, we learn what we can, we learn to be effective communicators, listen to the other side, present the best case for what we believe is the best future for Alberta, and then we go for it. And we don't stop, no matter what, no matter who tells you you're a dirty seppi, no matter who tries to shut down the conversation, we don't. We just continue the conversation, and we do that thing that's on the cup, which says, oh yeah, by the way, those are for sale. Let's talk Alberta. Thank you very much.
Oh. Forgot to mention.
Just 1 second, Max.
Okay,
I forgot to mention, as nice as it is to come and meet for these meetings and visit, it does cost money. So we're going to pass around the little church collection plate thingies. If you feel inclined, please stuff something in the box. Not Kleenexes. We had to clean those up once. That wasn't fun. But what you're doing when you put something in that box is you're supporting the conversation. You're supporting our ability to go out to towns like this, get people in rooms, and talk about the things that are important to Albertans. And if you're watching online, you can go to letstalkalberta.com. There's a little donate button there. You can use that. Or there's e-transfer options as well. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Let's Talk Alberta is solely on my shoulders. I mean, the responsibility of it. I'm a sole proprietor. We have lots of volunteers that help out with everything. But at the end of the day, if something is amiss, it's me who's in the hot seat. So if you want to donate to Let's Talk Alberta, and you trust that I will be a good steward of your financial contribution, please do so. If you don't, do not give me your money. We do this on a trust basis, and the people that support us, they know that we're going to do the right thing, and we appreciate that. If you're not in that camp, donate to somebody else, and I'm sure they'd be happy to have you. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes for a Q&A. Please feel free to grab a coffee. I see somebody brought some cookies that I'm going to go get if you don't get them first. And we'll answer your questions. We'll take your toughest challenges to our opinions and just have some conversation. Thank you very much.
This is the 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning.
Trying to look at it, I can't.
Can I get the speakers up, please? Can I get the speakers to come up? Cory, Zane, Chris, wherever you are. All right, looks like they're on their way up. Wayne, shush.
So we're about to start the Q&A session, guys. So the way it's gonna work, for those of you who are not aware of the formula, Mr. Alberta was gonna hand the mic, okay? Guys. So basically, he's gonna have the mic. If you got questions, raise your hand, and he's going to come to you with the microphone, okay? The people who are on the stream can hear your questions. If you are more or less shy about you being on the signal chain, we can write these questions down, and we'll read your questions after that, okay? But it's important that whenever you have a question or you have something to say over the microphone, the people on the stream cannot absolutely hear anything that's coming from here, okay?
I'm still off. Now I'm back. All right, so everybody knows who's on stage. We got Zane, we got Cory, we got Chris. Has anybody got a question they'd like to lead us off with? Anything that's burning? We want to stump these guys. We want to try and get something that they can't answer. And aha, that was the key words right there.
So, aside from all the things you're doing now, which are fantastic, and thank you for your service, how do you attract all demographics?
I don't. That's the honest truth. I do not attract all demographics. There's some people that are repulsed by me. And that means that if you share my opinions, you have to be the ones that attract those people. Because not everyone likes everyone else. And that's the beautiful thing about conversations, is it doesn't have to be me having the conversation with everyone. I have the conversation with people who want to listen to me or who will put up with listening to me. And then those folks, you go out to where you're at, and you're the ones that talk to the people that we can't reach. And this is especially true for the people that are blinded by emotional stuff, right? I don't have a trusting relationship with those people. You may. So you may be able to approach this subject and have the conversation from a place of trust and relationship already, which allows you to kind of bypass that emotional barrier that I never can. So that's the truth. We're not going to reach everybody, but with the 6 degrees of separation thing, everybody can be reached if people are willing to do the work.
Yeah, let's expand a bit. That politics sort of comes down to the same thing in every demographic, and not all respond to the same thing. But the bottom line is, what people want to hear is, what's in it for me? And that changes demographic by demographic. When we talk in a lot of rooms, and some of the older demographic, pension is one of the top questions and people are concerned about and they're worried about. And that's where we have to make people comfortable when we talk about these things. And they're asking maybe at best then, what's in it for my grandchildren? They're looking to leave something down. But as a kid who's 25, pension, I'm going to live forever. I'm not thinking about that yet. But they're worried about how am I ever going to possibly save to buy a house. So we have to model our question to the concerns of those demographics. It kind of comes back to what I talked about earlier too. If we don't know the concerns of that demographic or a different ethnic demographic or many others, ask. We don't necessarily know. That's one of the things we should never be afraid to say is, I don't know. And, please inform me. What are your concerns that are unique to your situation? But yeah, having a blanket policy to try and reach every demographic, we can't do it. But being receptive and communicating, we can reach a lot more of them. We all have a lot more common interests than we think. We just have to figure out where they are.
And just to add to that a little bit, it's often difficult to start any conversation, especially on a topic like this, because, we can see that people are very emotional. But like Chris said, a lot of you know individuals, maybe friends, relatives, co-workers, maybe you're on the fence. We always have to approach in a way where we don't get into a yelling match. Once emotion enters the conversation, we're done. So a couple of things that I use to try to draw people out, and if they're like, I want to stay in Canada and everything, I go, absolutely fine. I says, but you don't have to answer me right now, but just think about this.
and Chris, I think in his speech alluded to this a bit, I always say, can you name for me one specific thing that Canada has done for Alberta? Not for all the province territories, not for the West, but one specific beneficial thing that Canada has done for Alberta. And I've never had that question answered. And then people again, I'm saying, I'm not putting you on the spot, you don't have to, just think about it. I said, but I can name for you really easily 700 billion things that we've done for the rest of Canada with our transfer payments. We've built hospitals, highways, bridges, schools, all types of infrastructure, and helped out in many areas. That's why I think that we should look at options. The other thing is, if they start on a topic, and this is what I recommend everyone, there are so many things that we can address, but you can't know them all, right? So research one particular thing that interests you, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's taxation, whether it's, industry, whether it's whatever it is. Do your deep dive into that and be very confident and very knowledgeable. And you start a conversation and they might go off on something you're not that well versed in and go, I'm not that sure about it. Like Cory said, we can't answer everything. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. But then you can come back and draw them into your conversation and say, well, this is what's interests me. And then bring the conversation to the area that you've done your research and you're confident in. And then say, I'm going to dig into what you ask about because I need to know more about that too. And kind of just put that there and leave it open. And the other thing, I know I'm going long-winded here, getting the look. But the other thing too, in voting on that referendum, there is no downside to voting yes for a referendum. And this is how I'll explain it. You can go back to Quebec. When Quebec almost won that referendum in 1995, it scared Ottawa, it scared Canada, and they got a ton of leeway. A ton of leeway. So you can say to people, hey, even if you want to stay in Canada, that's fine. But imagine if we could scare Ottawa. Because I don't think there's many Albertans would say that we get a fair deal in this country. Even if you want to be a Canadian for life, that's fine. But I don't think many would say, oh, we got a great deal here. We're treated just as well as Quebec or the Maritimes. So, just say, hey, but, if you voted yes, imagine if we could get like 40% that would say yes. Man, that would finally make Ottawa pay attention to us and give us some of the leverage that Quebec got when they voted 49-51.
I have an online question here I'm going to address. So Brett says, would it not make more sense to abandon the Alberta flag and make a whole new one, being rid of that English Red Cross? Now, there's some people that have a problem with the Alberta flag. I don't. There's some people that have a problem with St. George's Cross. I don't. I don't believe it's evil. The Alberta flag represents something for me that it might not for you. I understand that people may not share that opinion, but I would suggest that maybe in a new nation of Alberta, we redesign the flag. Wouldn't that be a great thing to do? Of course. Why wouldn't we look at that? But for now, if you dislike that, there's plenty of overpriced merch over there that the lovely Jessica will be happy to sell you that is a different design that has nothing to do with this current thing. So, and also, for the viewer that put this question up there, he seems kind of angry that we're using it. I would suggest start your own initiative. Design your own emblems, hold your own town halls, and bring people advocating on a different flag. Right now, that's not our priority. I think that's something we'll look at in the future. But it's I don't know. I actually kind of like the flag. So.
We have Heather here with a question.
Hi, thanks for listening. I just have one quick thing I'm thinking. Some of these signs say, let's send a message to Ottawa. I'm quite concerned that that is a mixed message, because my understanding is we're done talking to Ottawa. We want them out. And I do love these signs that say choose Alberta, but I am quite concerned with the mixed messages that we're sending.
Yeah, well, the reason I've modeled those signs, which is a fair question, is that we don't have a yes-no question. We don't have a binding question. In fact, the very best thing we can get out of this referendum is to send a message to Ottawa and potentially start moving things towards a real and binding question. So at this point, we've got 4 months to convince as many Albertans as humanly possible to choose the vote to move this forward. And many, if not most, I mean, people particularly in this room, we want out. That's why we're at it. That's why we've been doing it. But this is a question that actually people on both sides can choose that option. If they're looking to send a message at this point, and those of us who are sending the message that we're already out the door, but it's just, it's to both benefit to have a strong vote on that side of that question. So I just wanted to broaden the appeal for people to choose that second option when we get to a real referendum, and we're going to get there one day, and it's going to be a stay or go, it's going to be a yes or no, then it's not going to be talking about sending a message. It's going to be talking about full independence. But that's the rationale I had behind putting that on. So I'm not trying to dilute from the messaging or distract or be disingenuous. I just feel that this is something that I think people on both sides could vote. If we get a strong yes, then it's still incumbent on us to find those ones who just voted to send a message and convert them into the full, let's send that message of being actually independence. But that's why I tried to broaden the appeal with that messaging.
And the other thing is, the path is the same. Whether you want leverage to change things and stay, or you want independence, or you want to become part of the 51st state, which we don't advocate for, the path is the same. It's a successful referendum on Alberta independence is required for any of those things. And that's where the unification is within the group of Albertans that believe that the status quo no longer serves them well. The path is the same. Once we reach that point, then each different group can advocate for their different opinions. Maybe they can change each other's mind and continue the conversation and move on from there. I do have another online question, and I think this is a good one for Cory, if you don't mind. So somebody asked in the comments, why would people stay? Why would Alberta want to stay in Confederation? What has Confederation done? And Brett, the same guy that asked the question about St. George's Cross and then accused me of grifting, even though I'm a capitalist selling products, totally different thing. He says, these are the things that he say we get. Trade deals, military significance. Residing under the Commonwealth brings a lot of benefits, such as open movement and military alliance. Seaports on 3 oceans. There are many benefits to staying. How would you respond to that, Cory?
Can we access any of those seaports right now? No. Is Team Tampon what's protecting us from being invaded by Russia or the United States? No. I mean, hey, there's some fine people serving in the military who are putting in what they can with an underfunded and under-respected military service. But these benefits, there's nothing offered that we can't replicate in an independent Alberta. In fact, replicate and improve upon. The coastal access one, I mean, we've got to address that one. Might as well hit it. It's a common question. We're already landlocked. Let's quit pretending we aren't. As Zane mentioned earlier, there is international agreements, but it's true, the UN isn't going to come in with their blue helmets and help us get a pipeline to the coast, but we certainly have some justification. The reality is what we don't have right now is leverage. There's nothing to twist BC's arm to say we're going to allow the pipe, and that's why it's not happening. But if we're independent, how many hours would it take after the rail lines are shut down before they'd say, okay, we'll take a pipe? And I mean, you negotiate, you make sure it's beneficial for BC. You can't force it through. They've got to get a piece of the action. That's fair enough. That's how countries work with each other. But we would have a much better ability and leverage to be able to reach those coastlines than we have now. I'm sorry, but anybody watching us spin our wheels for the last 20 years on trying to expand our infrastructure can't sit here and try and tell us that Canada is doing us favors as far as that is concerned. So that's where I stand.
There was a comment alleging that we disrespect the military. No, the disrespect to our service people started in the late 70s when Pierre Elliott Trudeau decided that Canada didn't need the honorable military we had and underfunded it for decades and put it in a position where it is right now, where service people have to turn in their kit to send it to other people because there isn't enough. You know, like the state of our military is absolutely pathetic. And it's nothing to do with the service people, the men and women who serve. It's everything to do with the nation and the bureaucracy that took control of it and abandoned it. I mean, our Canadian government tells our veterans that they're asking for more than we can give, and then they send, how many billions have we sent to Ukraine? 45 billion or something to other countries to fight wars that have nothing to do with us. I mean, we sent $80 million to some country with a Istan on the end of it. I can't remember exactly which one it was, for gender-affirming mine-clearing operations. And we're telling our veterans that they're asking for more than we can give. In Edmonton and Calgary, every single winter, our veterans die freezing on the streets. Did you know that? Every single year that happens. So when someone tells me it's disrespectful to challenge the status quo that allows these things to happen to our veterans and service people, this is one of the greatest arguments for Alberta independence. Imagine if we could constitutionally enshrine honoring our service people and making sure that they have the things they need and they're taken care of after. We don't do that now, and honestly, Western Canada, we don't really have much voice to change that. If we dislike that Justin Trudeau tells a veteran that they're asking for more than we can give when they just want to be taken care of, we could get everyone together, vote all the same in Western Canada, and it wouldn't make a lick of difference. And they'd continue abusing our service people like they do now. So if you want to do something to honor our service people, Alberta independence is a very good option to do so.
Hey guys, I got Thomas here. He's got a question for you.
Actually, I've got a question, but it's really more of a challenge. There's several things that we all agree on. One is our shared love for Alberta. I mean, we all want this place to thrive. We've made our homes here. Our families are here. The other thing is, it's pretty obvious. We all share common frustrations. The third point is there's, right in this room, there's about a half a dozen people that are leading their own charge. And right now we're a little bit like a kid's soccer team where every kid is chasing the same ball. And that's very exciting to watch when you're a young parent. It doesn't win games. And so my challenge is, how do we, and I know the reasons why, if we don't have one head, we can't chop it off. I've heard all those, and I agree with that, but it's a challenge to all these leaders. How do you guys get together, find common cause to unite people and get a consistent message out where people can hear it? Because there's a couple of things. It's well known, never bring facts to an emotional argument. I mean, guys, ask the guys in the room, right? Yeah. Don't bring facts to an emotional argument. And so the challenge is, why don't you guys all get together for a weekend somewhere? Chris has got great food up there. I've tried it. You can't eat it all. There's so much. Or somewhere down south, get together for a weekend, hash out 5 or 6 points that we can all get together on, and stop acting like a bunch of kids running after the same ball, because we all want the same thing. So how do we get together and organize? That's my challenge to you.
So just over a year ago, an exact meeting like that was held with about 15 people who were predominant in the independence and political world. And I won't go into names, but a couple of individuals blew up the whole room, and it fell apart, and everybody stormed out. This has been going on since Doug Christie led the Western Canada concept in the 80s, unfortunately. Albertan independence advocates love fighting with each other almost as much or maybe more than fighting with Ottawa. Pardon me? I know, but there's a lot of things I'd love to see. And we need to strive for that. We have a commonality, but using the team analogy, I'd rather use like a football team. You're all going to the same goal, but you all have different positions and specialties. So, a running back has got their specialty that's going to do something. A quarterback has got another specialty that's doing something. They're all working together towards the same thing, and they can share their interests to a degree. They don't have to be a bunch of the kids running around. I'm specializing, for example, in just getting some signs out, because I just couldn't handle nothing happening, which is why I started that. But there's much, much more that has to be done. There has to be door knocking coordinating. There has to be organized advertising. And the hardest part that you did point out, is consistency in messaging, because there's going to be different individuals. But just to kind of tie it back to some of the frustration, the early days of the internet, and it ties back to the flag, I wrote about that in my book when we had the early internet forums with a bunch of independent supporters. They broke out in a 2-week fight over what the design of the new flag of an independent Alberta would be. At that time, we were polling at about 6%, and these clowns wasted 2 weeks fighting over what a flag might look like in a post-independence. We have a heck of a lot more immediate stuff to deal with. So we got to stop sweating the small stuff, but it also just shows that prickly nature we have. We want to strive to work together as much as we can, but we also have to be realistic that to some degree it's going to have to be multiple groups moving towards the same goal, and hopefully not stepping on each other's feet or being that cluster of kids chasing a ball, because it is pointless. But I know what you're saying, and we got to try and stick to the common goal as much as possible. But to be honest, having known the players and everything that's going on this long, to try and hold a summit is going to look a lot like the one we saw last year.
Can't hear you. Can just somebody get the mic, please?
I agree with everything you're saying, but to use your football analogy, so we need a quarterback and a coach. Yeah. That's what I'm suggesting.
Well, that's where
no,
the analogy
I understand what you're saying,
short.
but I mean, I'm 73 years old now. I don't have time to look for another Peter Lougheed, right? I voted for him first time around.
I understand.
So we need to coalesce this wonderful movement, this energy, this raw energy, and bring it in some way that we can that we can convince our neighbors, because there's an expression, everybody loves a bandwagon, jump on, jump off. And let's get people jumping on the bandwagon.
I disagree. I don't think that we need to have a leader to get behind with this. I think we each need to become leaders and bring the conversation with us where we go. That's the difference between what we're doing right now and what political movements do. Political movements, they look for a leader to tell them where to go, to bring them with them. What we're telling you folks is that we need you, we collectively need to become leaders and advocate for what future we want to see. Because what we're looking for in October is not a new politician or a change of, a government for 4 years or something like that. We are asking a question on whether or not we want to self-determine. That doesn't require a leader. That requires individuals to ask themselves, is this situation that we're in right now, is the status quo what's best for me and my family, or is the opportunity to self-determine the best for me and my family? And then we become leaders. We become ambassadors for whatever our opinions are, and we bring them there. Once we get into the realm of we need a leader, we're begging for a king that may not be aligned with our values, right?
Can you just get the microphone, please?
I wasn't suggesting for one moment for a king or a leader. I was suggesting that we have a consistent message and that we don't get hung up on St. George's Cross or the military or something else. We come up with 5 or 6 strong points that everybody is beating the same drum, and we get some resonance going. Because I think you guys have much more in common than you do have not in common.
Yeah, I agree, but you did say we need to coalesce behind someone to take this, so that's why I assume you're talking about a leader.
Behind an idea.
Okay. Well, the ideas are here. I mean, this is, the talking points are very similar. Many people have different opinions as to what they want to see in independent Alberta, and we have different opinions because we don't know what the future will look like. Cory and I will say this, we'll say it every time. It might not be better. I can't guarantee you that. All I can guarantee you is that if we reach out and take this opportunity, we're going to decide what it looks like instead of someone that lives 4,000 kilometers away, right? That's what it's about. So the talking points, yes, you're going to see lots of different things. You're going to see lots of different people with different ideas or for military currency or whatever. But at the end of the day, the very first step required for any of those opinions to manifest in anything is that we take that opportunity to do that for the first time in history. Take the opportunity to make those decisions here rather than let someone else make them for us. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just think it's a little bit different.
Unless we bring our neighbors along, we won't get to that point, and it'll be I won't get another shot at it.
Sure.
You
Well,
you guys might be young enough, but I won't.
I hope that by the time you've left this meeting, grab some trifolds, some information. I hope that you'll have some things that you can use to talk to your neighbors. That's the goal of the conversation.
We have to remember that this is the first of two questions. We just got to get through this first question, and we've got to get as many different opinions and voices out there to guide everyone across this first question, right? After that, then we'll get more. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we got Eldon here. He's got a question for you.
All right. I've been trying to get things going in Calgary here. I was chatting with Richard Anderton the other day. He's got one of the TPAs in town. Trying to get, I guess, communication with the stay side. So one of the things that I've noticed is they all want everything provided for them in one single all-encompassing plan before they even consider discussing or voting to leave. I like that from the we need a new flag, we need a constitution, we need absolutely every aspect of a new country before we even go to a vote. And that kind of comes down to maybe the natives consultation as well. Everything has to be discussed 110% before we even go to the vote. I think that's ridiculous. My idea is if we're not making these decisions together as a province, what's the point? We're not going to be any better off. Do you guys have any recommendations on how to cross that bridge, broach that gap there?
Well, my thought on it, and these two gentlemen would be far more well-versed to answer this, but my thought on that is exactly basically what you said. If they want that all mapped out and laid that is just like frying pan into the fire. We are just jumping from one thing into another, and we, people like us in this room, will have no input into that process. So to go back to what Chris said, if we put all our effort into these things, right now there's just one thing we need to focus on. That vote on October 19th. And I would be far more hesitant to vote for that if someone in the back room, some academia and this and that had already mapped out our future for us where we have no input. Because that's the exact situation we're in right now, and what has it done for us? We had Laurentian elite that mapped out the future of this country, and it's put us under their boot for 121 years in this province. And do you think that if this was all mapped out, laid out, drawn up, constitution, all stamped and ready to go, that it would end up being much different? We need the input of people like this. Because when you get into the legislature, when you get into any of these roles, there's a thing called dome disease. And when you sit in a little locked room with a bunch of other peers or people just underneath you, they become sycophants. You don't understand what's happening in the real world. And we are the real world, and we need input to what our future is. But we can't do that if we don't get yes on that referendum question.
Something just occurred to me. There is actually a plan. I forgot. Let's talk about the plan. So the plan is to put everybody in their little boxes, have full state control in a totalitarian regime where your words can get you thrown in jail, where somebody else chooses where you live, how you raise your animals, how much fertilizer you use, what you're allowed to use to defend yourselves. The plan also includes marching towards the New World Order with China. The plan includes a universal basic income because you can't afford your basic things anymore because inflation is out of control because of irresponsible, reckless spending and funding other things that have nothing to do with us. The plan includes limiting your rights so that if the government decides you need a medical intervention, they can come to your house and tie you down and stick a needle in your arm. This is part of the plan. Like this is a plan that we're looking at right now. Some of these things are being contemplated in the House of Commons right now. And at the end of the day, how much say have Albertans ever had on the plan that Canada has for us and everyone else? Almost none. So my plan is for the first time in Canadian history that a group of people, Albertans, take control of their destiny, manage their own wealth and affairs, and become the sovereign grown-ups in the room that they were destined to be. That's my plan. Everything else that happens after that, we have thousands of years of history to look at. We have all sorts of constitutions to review and see what worked best, what didn't work. We have all sorts of information at our fingertips on what we can do better, and then we get to decide. And the idea that 5.5 million Albertans couldn't collectively decide what the best future for them is absolutely preposterous. So there is a plan right now. I don't like it. I want us to write the plan going forward, and that's what a yes vote gives us.
And just a bit of a different approach than what you were talking about, because another thing that some of the opponents of this have been putting out is to try and drown us in whataboutisms. And they're saying, well, you don't have a specific plan for this. You don't have a costed plan for that. You haven't designed your next postage stamp. You haven't told us how many square feet a prison cell is going to have in a new Alberta federal prison. They will drown you in all of that, and they are doing that right now. And they're saying, well, if you can't answer those questions, you aren't ready to become independent yet. And it's a nasty circular way to debate. And we got to watch for that. There's a difference when you talk to people between somebody who has some genuine concerns and questions or somebody who just wants to walk you down that garden path of 100 questions, and don't worry, if you answer all 100, they'll have 100 more by the time you're done. But there has been some groundwork done on this. Sheila Gunn Reid wrote a book called The Independence Blueprint. Quebec spent decades with academics, lawyers, journalists, all sorts of people, and they actually laid out all sorts of plans that covered many, many, many of those things. And it's been translated to English, and it's in her book. We don't need to reinvent a lot of those wheels. We just need to scratch out Quebec and put Alberta. It's not like we didn't already pay for it. So we'll never be able to answer every question that somebody could throw at us in these things, and that makes it difficult because you're asking people to step off and vote for something that you don't have a solid answer on. But at the same time, there are a lot of answers that are covered out there too. So if we can educate ourselves a little more, we can fill some of those. But we will never be able to answer all of them. We just have to try and stick to the broader principles for the most part.
And one other thing to keep in mind when those people try to drag you down the path of it's impossible to do, it's this. In the last 4 decades, there have been about 35 nations that have been declared nation states. You can look at Czechoslovakia. I mean, they're now Czech and Slovakia, the velvet separation there. You can look at Yugoslavia. That country is now 6 countries. And none of those countries had a fraction of the resources and wealth that we do. And if they could all do it successfully, create their own border check stations, their own currencies if need be, their own passports, all of their own constitution, and do it successfully, why can't we do it when we have so much more wealth at our fingertips? Do you know that Calgary has the highest percentage of post-secondary graduates of any urban center in Canada? And do you know, I've done a ton of business in the U.S., and not to disparage them, but I would say that means that Calgary has the highest percentage of post-secondary graduates in North America. Everybody tries to paint us as a bunch of rednecks, illiterate, incompetent, rig pigs. That is so far from the truth. We have many brilliant people in this province. We certainly have the ability to pave our way forward very successfully when you see it's been done countless times in history, literally thousands of times, with far less opportunity, far less knowledge, and far less resources.
Just an interesting point. Norway and Sweden actually split in 1905, which is the same year that Alberta was brought into Confederation without referendum, plebiscite, First Nations consult, or anything. Just a little tidbit there.
Interesting topic, and I live this all the time, right? So can I do a quick experiment here to help you with this a little bit? So you're going to meet people and ask them a simple question. I'm going to ask people here a simple question and answer honestly first, okay? I'm going to take you through a couple of questions, right? So are you happy right now with your life as it is in Alberta or Canada? Put your hand up if you're happy. Okay, so you're going to meet people that are happy. So you're so that's one group. Who here is unhappy? Who's already decided they're unhappy? Okay, so when you meet that person who's unhappy, they're an ally. You don't need to convince them. They already know. When you meet somebody who says they're happy, they might be happy now and they might be happy forever. Because remember, a lot of people who came to Alberta came here from somewhere else where they were unhappy. If you came to Alberta in the last 5 years and you came from, I don't know, you came from the Congo, you came from South Africa, you came to some place, you come here, you're happy right now, and you ask that person, why are you happy? They'll give you a reason, and trying to win them over is probably a complete waste of time. So I just want to point that out. There are people that are happy here right now for all sorts of reasons, and if you're unhappy, you're going to waste your time trying to convince some people. You might get the odd person who's on the fence. That's who you want to try and work with, but don't work them too hard because you're going to lose them instead of winning them over. So you got to play it that way. And when you speak in absolutes, like when you say that everybody should be unhappy or everybody should want the same thing or everybody should see it a certain way, you're speaking in absolutes, and that doesn't work because we're all human beings and we all experience life in a completely different way, and you can't speak in absolutes when you're speaking about with humans because we just experience, like Chris says, I mean, some people like me and some people don't. So, do I win over somebody who just doesn't like me? No, you can't. So I just wanted to put it out there. It's very easy to get caught in that trap.
We have Happy Bridget here.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
I was just going to say, I don't know anybody that doesn't like you.
Okay, sorry. I've been part of the independence movement for like 6 years, I guess. And in the beginning it was Wexit. We did Wexit. And at that time I was like, you guys got to get together. You got to have a goal. You got to do it this way. So we did. We set up a party, the Alberta Independence Party. And then we set up another party, the Buffalo Party, when that one fell apart. And it's just one person. We set up constituency associations. We volunteered. I'm talking working from 7 in the morning till like 1 in the morning. Like, we just worked our butts off. We tried so hard. One person can blow it up. One person can steal money. One person can do something ridiculous, blow up your entire movement. We were like pulling at 4%, 2%. After all that work and doing everything, working tirelessly for no money, for free, this is the most success I've ever seen. And this is just people talking to their neighbors, being brave. Like, this is definitely the most success, and we are growing every single time they poll. So I think this is working, even though it feels like we're leaderless. This is the most success I've ever seen. Sorry, not a question, sorry.
Yeah, just a second. Just a gentleman has also been putting a thing out just to remind folks, The Value of Freedom is a document online with some background. It's at the Alberta Prosperity Project with some of the costed items as well. I should pass that along as well.
We got Dan here with a question.
I think it was Zane said earlier that the nation isn't broken, it's working as designed. So I guess my question is, at what point does this movement recognize that begging our oppressors for our freedom is the wrong path and just declare independence, or down that road at least?
Well, there's a bit of a process to that, and what we're trying to do right now is within, the Clarity Act, what the Supreme Court has done, precedent that was set, even though, interestingly, after 1995 and all of that occurred, Quebec almost separated, and then all this happened. Quebec still didn't agree or sign off on the Clarity Act because they said it was non-functional. We're trying to follow the guidelines, the rules, but there is the thing of operating in good faith. And when that is proven to not work, it really just takes two things to create a separate, independent nation state. It takes a majority vote, which, contrary to what Carney says, and this could be a fight, but he, in the House of Commons about 6 weeks ago, they said it was 50% plus one vote, and Carney agreed with it. Then later on he goes, oh no, we'd have to review that, have to be more. Whatever. Carney is Carney. Carney last week got off the plane in Europe, and the first thing out of his mouth into the microphone was, "It is so good to be home." And that's the leader that this country has chosen, and it's just another affirming action why I want out. But to go back to what you said, it takes
50%, a majority vote, 50% plus one, and it takes the recognition of at least 2 accredited nations. And we currently have over 30 nations that would sign off on that. Obviously, nations such as the United States, Israel, Japan, on and on and on. And ironically, when Kosovo separated from Yugoslavia, the 2 first nations to recognize them as an independent nation state were Canada and then Japan. And just about 3 or 4 months ago, Carney stood up without permission from any of us as Canadians, and he declared Palestine an independent nation state, even though they meet none of the criteria for it. So, I mean, you know, in the international law, the Court of International Law, we have a great case for us to be able to go that route should the time come. But that is also why we need to have the majority of people vote.
Here's the thing that people don't want to hear. I agree with you in that we shouldn't be begging our oppressors for permission to leave. And that is exactly why when the Clarity Act came out, Quebec immediately passed legislation saying they would never use it. Because they recognize that, no, we're not going to ask you if we're doing this, we are doing it. But what Quebec has that we don't have is a political party with cachet that actually can do things. That's the difference. We have a problem in Canada. We're politically cowardly. We really are. If you go back to the 90s and you look at what happened with the Reform Party came up from nowhere. From nothing to something. It really did. People had the courage to do something different, and they made it happen. Because the Reform Party, that's their values aligned with the voters. And what we saw after was this huge propaganda machine that convinced people that for their own safety, for their own good, you must sacrifice some of your values and your principles, unite, and all work together, alas, or in case we get a liberal government. And then Alberta. We see Alberta have the Wild Rose Party come up from nowhere and have success. They were the official opposition, and they were gaining traction. And then something happened to kneecap that movement. Kind of like something that happened in the early 80s to kneecap Alberta's economy. Things that happen all the time that take Alberta from moving to a more prosperous, more independent province to not. And the Wild Rose Party was almost wiped out. What happened after that? A massive propaganda campaign based on fear saying, we need to unite and all get along and sacrifice some of our values and principles and all get together because we're so scared of the NDP. Well, Quebec doesn't think like that. And we got to stop thinking about that too. If we want changes here, we have to start having the courage for change. And sometimes it's not an easy thing. It really is not. But if you don't have it, I'm sorry, but you don't deserve the change you want. So this is where we're at in Alberta. We have some very difficult decisions coming up. We have a lot of conversations that have to happen. And we have to be willing to recognize the mistakes that have been made in the past and how we fix them going forward into the future. Because we will not have much success begging. You don't beg for your sovereignty. You take it. And Quebec knows that. We need to know that too.
You know, we see the issue that happened in Sundre. Everybody's flipping out about an Alberta flag. Could you imagine that happening in Quebec? If there was a parade that happened in Quebec and there was a float that just had the fleur-de-lis on it, and if a community banned it, that entire province would be up in arms because they have pride in their land and their province, and that's what we need here.
Can I add something about the Quebec stuff too? Raise your hand if you have ever been in Quebec here. Raise your hand. What do you notice in people's houses or in buildings and stuff? They wave the Quebec flag more than the Canadian flag. Why shouldn't we be doing this in Alberta? Just asking here, asking for a friend here. So that's another perspective. If they don't, basically by waving the Alberta flag, that's basically asserting dominance in a sense, right? From a political standpoint. So if those guys over there, they do the same, why don't Albertans do that? If you go to Saskatchewan, you almost don't see the Saskatchewan flag anywhere, aside from maybe some rural areas, but most of the time you'll see the Canadian flag everywhere. Same rationale. It's a mentality shift that needs to start somewhere on people's heads, and that's how you act on. And by the way, if you're gonna get some signs from Cory Morgan, I'm gonna put 2 or 3 in my apartment, and just so you know, my MLA is Janice Irwin. So I'm in the worst case scenario for apartment vandalism in Alberta. I'll do anyways, because being like him, right? So just FYI. Okay, sorry.
I better just to clarify. So Let's Talk Alberta, we don't advertise for anybody. We don't spend any money to advertise for anybody.
Sure.
If you want to come here and bring signs to hand out, you're absolutely welcome to. Like I said before, I would welcome a Forever Canadian table to come and bring some of their signs and give them out to people and have conversations. It just so happens that even though that side believes that their ideas and opinions are the right way, they're not willing to come here and talk to us and explain why. But I really hope we can change that.
One thing I know about the Forever Canadian campaign is you have to give up a whole bunch of information in order to get one of those signs, just saying. We have George. He's got something he would like to ask you guys, I think.
Well, I don't have a question. This is my first meeting of Let's Talk Alberta that I've attended in person. I've been watching online many of them, and I am really enjoying myself this evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for what you're doing. When was it? Yesterday evening, I guess, I was again watching the online meeting that was held in Caroline. Yep. And based on that, I decided to sit down behind my computer and put some thoughts on paper so I wouldn't just be rambling. So if you would just indulge me for a little bit, I just want to bring another perspective to this whole discussion, which so far hasn't really received a whole lot of attention, but so please, if I may, I'm just going to read what I wrote here. Yesterday evening, I watched online the Let's Talk Alberta town hall meeting held recently in the town of Caroline. There were 2 presenters who I had not heard of before, Zane Novak, hi Zane, and Penny Judson. The thrust of their presentation instilled in me the urgency to come here this evening and to say a few words that will build on many of the things that they said and that other presenters before them have said. My name is George Van Woudenberg. My wife and I, we live about 10 kilometers east of Airdrie. And here is just a little bit of background in order to come to what I'm wanting to share with you. 72 years ago, the Van Woudenberg family came to Canada from Holland. I was a 7-year-old boy, the youngest of 7 children. During my lifetime in Canada, I have lived in 4 of the 10 Canadian provinces. Often I have lived in different places within any of those provinces. And during those younger years of varied experiences, as shall I say, cultures, I have acquired many insights and some understanding of how the Dominion of Canada was held together and how the systems/constitution and the underlying built-in deficiencies of the system were intentionally taken advantage of in the last decades, starting with the repatriation of the Constitution and the added Bill of Rights under the devious leadership of Pierre Elliott Trudeau and his bureaucrats. Now, I have a quick question. How many of you folks have ever visited the Parliament buildings in Ottawa? All right. I have. I have lived in the Ottawa region, and my wife and I, we would have visitors over from out of the province or from outside of Canada, and we would often take them to see and tour the Parliament buildings. I've been inside those historical walls numerous times. I was always proud to show off our Parliament buildings. That was then, about 40 years ago. Do you know that after the fire of 1916 that destroyed the center block of the Parliament buildings, the rebuilt Parliament buildings, Peace Tower and center block, to this day, feature 25 scripture verses etched in stone, brass, and stained glass. The Peace Tower contains numerous Bible verses incorporated into its architecture, including the concrete arches, stained glass windows, and the memorial chamber's altar of remembrance. Now note that these inscriptions were chosen after the 1916 fire, and they were chosen to inspire Canadians and symbolize the Dominion's moral and spiritual foundations, with many texts referencing guidance, justice, and courage. And I just picked out two as an example. On the east window of the Peace Tower, there's Psalm 72, verse 8, which reads, "He shall have dominion also from sea to sea," which, by the way, still serves as the Canadian motto, the national motto. And on the west window, we have Proverbs 29, verse 18, which reads, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." The last verse is what I want to emphasize. I am 100% in support of independence. I am encouraged by the 3 pillars put forth by the Alberta Prosperity Project upon which to build an independent Alberta. The pillars: faith, family, freedom. That is a vision by which a people will flourish and not perish. But just a moment. Yesterday, I went to the APP website and discovered that they no longer have these 3 pillars in their mission statement. I did a little bit more research and found an article that was written just last March the 11th, so that's about 3 months ago, by a certain John Longhurst, who is a freelance reporter and columnist from Winnipeg. I read his article, and sure enough, the pillar of faith gets attacked. Who would have thought? Now, sadly, the APP has gone soft. They jettisoned their core reason for being. No purpose, no values-based vision. I am so sad and disheartened by this development, and I see this as a victory for our opponents. My dear fellow Albertans, we have to get back to faith as the bedrock of our freedoms for our families and a free new society of a new country of Alberta. I hope that my plea is listened to, because otherwise Alberta independence is going to be the next failed political and social experiment. The struggle of attaining our necessary and well-intentioned goals will fail if we do not build on the 3 pillars of faith, family, and freedom, in that order. Our struggle is much more than fiscal equity, oil and gas pipelines, lower taxes, and a better future for our children and grandchildren. These issues are part of the details, of course. However, our core fundamental struggle is one of good versus evil. And this has been kind of touched upon also this evening as to how we are being governed. Christian foundations, as we have had, versus secularism, socialism, and ultimately communism, none of which are, believe you me, are neutral. I close with this. Choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As indicated on the walls of Canada's government buildings, and I pray will one day appear on the walls of the government buildings of the Republic of Alberta. I thank you for allowing and wrestling with me on this very fundamental question. Thank you.
I can't speak to what is on the APP website. However, having been involved in politics a little bit, and I'm certainly not a politician, I did a lot of research, and there are countless studies done that prove that the 4 fundamental cornerstones of happiness are family, faith, community, and work. And if you look at the country, you can look globally, but I'm just focusing on Canada right now, those 4 core values, family, faith, community, and work, have been being attacked and attacked and attacked. They've been being attacked for decades. You know, there was a time when we could have an amazing lifestyle with one parent working and the other parent in the home, raising the children, a good nuclear family, raising good children. That all had to change. But in the last 6 years, those 4 cores have come under nuclear attack. And I think that that is just another reason why we need to start with a clean slate and a clean opportunity to get back to those fundamental things that will make us happy.
You ready?
I think so.
Mrs. L's got something she'd like to say.
I have a million questions. No. I actually have a gal from, you want to hold that? A gal from Red Deer wrote this out, and I just think it's something that needs to be shared. Should we increase homelessness? Should we increase the number of people living below the poverty line? Should we increase solvencies? Should we drive up rent and housing prices? Should we drive up unemployment, especially youth unemployment? Should we accept lower GDP and drive up household spending? Should we accept higher food inflation? Should we reduce capacity in our healthcare system? Should we accept more people dying while waiting for surgery? Should we pay more interest on national debt? Should we create more funds financed by borrowing on the backs of struggling citizens? Should we block provincial resources? Should we transfer power to international organizations over elected governments? Should we tolerate more crime while having more repeat offenders on the streets? Should we have less safety on our streets? No, nobody would support this. These are the conditions that exist in Canada right now. Yet people in Canada are convinced that Canada is worth saving. And the man leading the country, dear Mark Carney, is tied to the system that helped engineer these systems to produce these outcomes. And it's now expanding, and he is now expanding them into the future. Solution: Alberta independence.
I think there's only one answer to all of those questions. We're good?
I actually have a question online.
Okay.
Question for Cory specifically. Where do we get those signs if you're not here or whatever it is?
Well, if one insists on me giving a plug, if you're looking for signs, CoryMorgan.com. It's nice and easy to remember.
I usually go to whatever Cory Morgan, his own premises, go and meet him, either LTA or whatever other group. That's where you get.
Yeah, we don't have an established spot. You know, it's a bunch of volunteers. People like Mr. Albertan and the others have been spreading them around. A lot of other people. We are backed up. I mean, we're getting better kind of centrally and spreading out to the farther areas with these. The best I can keep offering, and I know people get impatient, is go to CoryMorgan.com, put your name in on the form. It will go into the spreadsheet, and eventually we will catch up and get one to somebody.
Or you can actually go to whatever event where Cory Morgan is on-prem. You can get your signs from there. That's where I got mine, at least. I got mine from Milk River, by the way.
Hey guys, we got Brian here. He's got a good question for you.
Okay, we talk about percentages. Percentages, like we need 40%, 39%, 51 plus. A percentage, like, do we have a total, like 3.9 million we have to get a percentage of that. So how does that work? Is that right now, settled right now? Is it the eligible voters that voted in the last provincial election? Is that the number?
Oh, the number would be a percentage of the people that vote in the referendum, right? So if 1 million people vote, then it would need presumably 500,001, right? That's, yeah.
So to be eligible to vote, you'd have to be an Alberta citizen. Is this true?
You have to be a Canadian citizen and a normal resident of Alberta.
Okay, great. Thank you.
What is normal?
Well, I couldn't tell you.
That information is on the Elections Alberta website, by the way. In a nutshell, you have to be at least 6 months a resident of Alberta, actually living in Alberta, a Canadian citizen, 18 years old. So in a nutshell, if you already voted in the last provincial election, you're good to go.
So do we have any more questions? Anybody thought of anything at the moment? You got an online one? No?
If there isn't any more questions, I have a question.
Okay.
How many people in this room have been to Paul's Pizza? That's almost everybody. Just so you know, and Jessica doesn't know this yet, I think we're going to make a detour to Paul's Pizza and have supper there once we're done here.
Give me a place for me, please, because I need to pack all of this.
So last night Zane heard this question, but I've got a question that really struck up some ire. Our premier has put to the ballot 9 of her own questions, one that we've put forward. Corblund has now got an 11th question that he wants on the ballot. What is stopping her from doing the first 5? And how is she supposed to do the last 4 without us voting yes?
I mean, it's a poll. Let's just get real with it. We did the equalization question too, but it went nowhere because it takes constitutional change. It's a poll. The thing I look at to try and look at as a pragmatist, I only care about the last question. I'll go make my mark on the other ones, but none of them matter because all of them call for opening the Constitution, and unless I live to 1,000 years old, I'm not going to see that thing successfully open in Canada. But maybe the discussion and bringing it up, it helps us along. Oh, look at this. There's a question. We could fix the Senate, or we could fix immigration. Yeah, if we open the Constitution. Otherwise, you're just voting in a poll.
And some of those questions that are referred to in the referendum about immigration, she does have some latitude to change some of those things without going to a referendum. Just like the question that 700,000 people answered, 400,000 Forever Canada and 300,000 for Stay Free, she could have done that referendum question and put it out there without having to have had all those signatures submitted. So when she did that announcement here a month or two ago about on Tuesday when she was going to address, and she came up with this mealy-mouthed question that we're going to have, I mean, she said in there, we've got to stop kicking the can down the street on this. Well, that's exactly what she's doing. She's burying this poorly worded question, in my opinion, poorly worded question, in with 9 other questions, and it could be 10 now because of the coal question on the eastern slopes. And I think that it's just a situation of kicking the can down the road, hoping that this will just go away. Now, this is just my opinion. And I think that just is a further insult to us. And I think that should just make us more determined to say, we're not going to be played by your games. This is our province, this is our future, and we are going to fight for it.
Well, we're going to bring your microphone, please.
Can her question between now and October 19 be changed?
Yes, but it'd be extremely unlikely. She's gotten herself in enough crap lately. I couldn't see her trying to change the questions at this point.
Okay.
Does anyone here have any more questions? Raise your hand.
Yes. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 3 7/8.
You're out.
So I just want to just end on from myself on a very positive note. Alberta has so many things going for it. We will enter into a negotiation period when this all happens, and we have so many strong negotiating points. We have, everybody's worried about the national parks. Well, the federal government just has stewardship of them. That's our land. That's our land. The military bases, there's leases to DND, Defense Department. That's our land. We have all of these things in our favor. We have an overpayment in CPP with interest that's over $400 billion. That's in our favor. That's a negotiation point for us. We need to stop the succumb to the fear-mongering of media and other disenfranchising groups. There is no negatives, really, other than us not voting. That is the only obstacle we have. Everything else, people like us and smarter people than us can explain how we really are in such a strong position here. The only negative is getting people out to vote on October 19th. That's your challenge. We can only do so much. People, like Chris said, neighbors, friends, relatives. Start those conversations, plant those seeds.
I just want to ask you a question here. Raise your hand if you know folks in Claresholm right now. Claresholm. Yeah, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so Claresholm, okay. There's going to be another Let's Talk Alberta meeting tomorrow at 7, and at 5:30 they're going to be pierogies. So bring your friends there if you're in the area. Raise your hand if you are in Drayton Valley. If you know people from Drayton, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Well, you guess you're going to be stuck with me because I will be streaming that event, and they'll have... Who's going to be on Wednesday, Chris, tomorrow in Claresholm?
I don't know things. I just followed later.
Oh. Okay. Okay, so anyways, in Drayton, they're going to have Michael Wagner, Jason Levine confirmed, and Shane Meikle, and who else then? I don't remember on top of my head.
I'll tell you what, if you folks want to know where we're at and what we're doing, who's going to be there, you can go to letstalkalberta.com. First thing you do is you click on the donate button. You scroll down to the...
by the way, I just got
posters.
information that you'll be with Cory Morgan over there in Claresholm. You lucky people.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so I do want to mention that there's a couple of comments that came up basically saying thank you to the gentleman who presented that information about the stuff in Parliament and why we need to center Alberta around the faith that built it in the first place. So you've got some fans out there, sir. Thank you very much for that. Also, I'd like to say again, thank you to everyone for coming out. Thank you to all the volunteers who ran and got cookies for us and made coffee and put chairs out and those types of things. We would appreciate it if you'd help us put the chairs away after as well. And we'll see you at the next Let's Talk Alberta event.
Yep. And for those watching live, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next event there. So we will absolutely need some help with the chairs. We need the chairs to be put on top of the tables, okay? And that will be absolutely a blessing for you two guys to do it. No. Put it out. I don't want them there. Because I need to put all the cables. Thank you.
I just wanted to help with the chairs.
Okay, you put it over there. Okay. So see you tomorrow, guys.